Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another Glacial Geek Kill Team Battle Report. I'm Phil, the Glacial Geek, coming to you here from Savannah Line Games in Pooler, Georgia, where I'll be fighting a 200-point Commander Arena Kill Team battle between my Genestealer Cult and Neil's Tyranids. So the story that we've got going on here is that the Genestealer Cult on this planet had felt the tendrils of the hive mind start to prickle the back of their heads, and they started the uprising, sending this whole planet into chaos, overthrowing the imperial governor and overthrowing the everything here that was that had been law and order beforehand, prepping the planet for the arrival of the Hive Fleet. But when it arrived and the spore pods started dropping from the sky, the Patriarch on this planet realized that these Tyranids who had arrived were not from his Hive Fleet. They were from a different Hive Fleet, and he bristled at it and fought back against it and decided to put up a fight against them to try to prepare this, keep this planet for his Hive Fleet when it finally arrived. So that's the story that we've got going on. We are going to be playing the Interlopers mission for this. Essentially, there are 4 objectives on the table, on the board here. What happens is if you control, at the end of your turn, if you control 1 objective, you get a point. If you control 2 or more objectives, you get an additional point. And if you control more objectives than your opponent, you get an additional point for a maximum of 3 points per turn and a maximum of 9 points total for that mission. We also have 3 secondary missions, which are going to be kept secret until they are scored, which is exactly how Arena is played. It's only a 4-round game, so got to get those points in as quick as possible. So that is the story. That is the mission. Before we go any further, though, let's show you the 2 armies that are going to be kicking ass. So for the Genestealer Cult, from left to right here, we have my commander, who is a Locust. We have a neophyte leader, who is my leader specialist. We then have a neophyte gunner, who is going to have a seismic cannon, heavy specialist. We have a zealot specialist, who is an aberrant with a pick. We then have an acolyte hybrid fighter with a heavy rock saw, who's my combat specialist. I then have 2 more aberrants with picks. We have 2 pure strains. We have an acolyte leader who has a hand flamer, a regular acolyte with hand flamer, and then an acolyte fighter with a heavy rock cutter. And for the Tyranids, his kill team will consist of, from left to right here, a Death Leaper. We then have a Hive Guard who is a heavy specialist. We have a Hive Guard demolition specialist. We have a Hive Guard veteran specialist. And we have a Tyranid warrior who will be his leader. All right, so going over deployment here, I've got my combat specialist and my leader up front. I then have my acolyte leader with the hand flamer. We've got my locust commander. We've got the heavy specialist, and we've got 1 of the aberrants. We then have the regular acolyte with the hand flamer, 2 of the pure strains. We've got 2 of the aberrants. 1 of them is the zealot specialist, and then we have my other fighter with the rock cutter. That's deployment for the Genestealer Cult. Going over deployment for the Tyranids, we've got his, that is his demolitions expert back there. We've got his veteran specialist and his heavy specialist. We then have his leader and his Death Leaper right up here. So that is the deployment. We will now roll to see who will have initiative going into turn 1. I get an 8, my opponent gets an 11. So we'll come back to you after movement for the Tyranids here on turn 1. All right, movement phase for the Tyranids here. His Death Leaper moved up and opened up the door. His Hive Guard behind him moved up to him there. This Hive Guard readied himself. This guy opened this door, and his leader moved around over this way onto the objective. And at the end, opened up the door there. So that is going to be it for the movement phase for the Tyranids. We'll come back to you with movement phase for the Genestealer Cult. All right, movement phase for the Genestealer Cult here on turn 1. Everybody over on this side advanced up over this way. This guy moved up here and opened the door, and then everyone else over here advanced up over this way. So lots of advanced moves. That's what we do. So that's going to be it for the movement phase. We will come back to you with the shooting phase. All right, so we're going to start off with this readied guy here. He is going to fire indirect into my guy over here because we looked at it, and you don't need to draw a line of sight for the Hive Guard shooting here. And it says you can't attack, but it specifically goes into fighting through walls. So, I mean, if you can tell us where it says specifically they can't shoot, because shooting usually requires line of sight, these weapons ignore it. So we're assuming that you can do this. So his veteran here is going to fire into my Genestealer over here.
Only on 6s.
Looking for 6s though, because it's indirect. Getting one hit though.
Cannot reroll.
Cannot reroll. Strength
8.
Strength 8, so that's going to be wounding on a 2. That is a wound. Got a 5-up invul save. And he's good with a filth phase. Woo! All right, so now into the regular shooting phase. This guy here is going to shoot into the same guy over there. Hitting on 6s. No hits. And the last guy is going to do the exact same thing. Getting one hit. Wounding on a 2. No wound. Opponent's going to spend a command point to reroll that. No, not meant to be. All right, so that's going to be the end of turn 1. At the end of turn 1, I control 2 objectives. My opponent controls 1 objective. So my opponent scores 1 point for holding 1 objective. I score 1 point for holding 1 objective, 1 point for holding 2 or more objectives, and a 3rd point for controlling more objectives than my opponent. So leaving me at 3 points, my opponent at 1 point. Neither of us scored any of our secondaries. So we will now roll for initiative to see who will go first going into round 2. I rolled a double 6, so it looks like Genestealer Cult going first. Movement phase for the Genestealer Cult here on turn 2. This guy moved up here and opened the door. He moved up over to this way. My leader, I left him where he was, and at the beginning of the movement phase, declared for one of my secondaries that he was going to activate engines. So essentially what happens is I nominate him. He's within 1 inch of that objective there, and what he does is he gets to he holds that objective. He cannot move, react, do anything. Basically, he can't do anything for this whole turn, but I will score 1 point for that, which is pretty cool for my secondary. He moved up over here. He advanced up over to here. He moved here. This guy moved up here and opened the door. He then advanced, beat through the door. These 2 guys advanced up over this way. For him, I wanted to get him over there. And I rolled a 3, which got him 1 inch away. Would have gotten him 1.5 inches away from the wall over there. Spent a CP to re-roll it, and I got him over here because I rolled a 1. Now my re-roll, which is not great, my Zealot Specialist advanced over to here, and that is it for those movements. We do have 1 assault to make. He is going to try to charge into him over here. Are you going to spend CP for?
You got it.
All right, my opponent's going to spend a CP for point blank Overwatch. So let's see his. I've got to roll first to see if I even will come around there because I could roll a double 1. 4 inches will not get him in there, but he's got Swift and Deadly, so I get to re-roll his charge distances. And a 9 inches probably will make it. 1 second. I was actually off by 1/2 inch. So when I moved him, I just moved him up to the corner there before poking around the corner for him to get Overwatch. So my opponent lost the CP because he has to spend it when it's declared, but he never showed himself, so he never was a viable target to shoot at. So that is going to be it for the movement phase here. So we will come back for the Genestealer Cult. So we'll come back to you after movement phase for the Tyranids here. All right, movement phase for the Tyranids here on turn 2. This guy readied himself. This guy moved up over to here, and this guy over here readied himself. Now his Death Leaper and his leader are going to charge. So we're going to go with the leader first. He's going to charge into all 3 over here. So we've got 1 shot from the las pistol over here, or the auto pistol. Nope, no hit there. So his charge distance. An 11-inch charge will get him in.
The distance.
And then the Death Leaper is going to charge into both my commander and into my combat specialist. Nope, no Overwatch shot here, or is that from there? So a 4-inch charge will get you into there because it's within an inch. So an 8-inch charge will get him in. All right, so at the end of the movement phase, the Locust, my commander here, has a special tactic called Sudden Strike. It says, use this tactic at the end of the movement phase. If a Locust from your kill team is on the battlefield, is within 6 inches of an enemy model, did not advance, fall back, retreat, make a charge attempt, or arrive from reserve in this turn, and is not shaken or within 1 inch of an enemy model, the Locust can immediately make a pile-in move as described in the fight phase, except that it can move up to 6 inches rather than 3 inches. So he is going to pile in over to here. So pretty cool. I'm now in combat with his Death Leaper. We'll find out if that was a good idea or not. See what happens. All right, so that is going to be it for the movement phase. So into the shooting phase, we're going to start with this guy over here. He stood still. He is Hive Fleet Chronos, which allows him to, if he stays still, he gets to reroll ones to hit. He's going to fire indirect into my Zealot Specialist over here, so he's going to have 2 shots, hitting on 6s. Nope, no hits. Same thing for this guy over here, hitting on 6s because it's indirect, getting 1 hit, wounding on a 2. That is a wound. AP minus 2. I think that might go straight through. All right, he's only got a 5-up save, so AP minus 2 means he's got no save, but it's D3 damage. 3 damage, which gets reduced to 2, which is still enough to possibly take him out of action here. And he is out.
6s.
And then now his other guy here is going to fire indirect into his dude bro over here. So hitting on 6s.
No rerolls.
No rerolls because he did move. Nope. All right, so at the beginning of the fight phase, I'm going to spend 2 CP for Decisive Strike for my Locust to attack into his dude bro over there. So I'm going to have 4 attacks base, plus 1 because he's a melee specialist, and he'll be attacking into him over there. So it's going to be 5 attacks, hitting on 2s. All right. He is Pauper Princes, but he didn't charge. He wasn't charged, and he didn't wasn't successfully charged, and he didn't have pile-in based from the Heroic Intervention tactics. So that I don't get to reroll these ones, even though Pauper Princes normally would. So it's going to be 3 hits. These are going to be wounding on 4s because he's Strength 4, Toughness 4. Okay, getting 1 wound. This is AP minus 3, so that's just going to go straight through his armor. And because he did a sudden strike, his weapon is actually damage 2, so he's going to take 2 damage.
Going to be the.
All right, so now his Death Leaper is going to be attacking into my Locust over here. So he's going to have 4 attacks here. These are going to be hitting on 2s. All hits there, and then wounding on strength, what is it?
6.
Strength 6, so I think it's wounding on toughness 3. Yeah, wounding on 2s. Re-rolling those failed wound rolls because of it's coming right for me, or right at me. So that's going to be 4 wounds there. Came out real good there. AP minus 1, so he's got a 5-up invul save. Making none of them. 2 wounds each, so he is dead. All right, so now his leader over here is going to attack. He's going to put 2 attacks into my Acolyte Fighter there and 2 attacks into my Pure Strain. So we'll do the 2 attacks into the Acolyte Fighter first. That is 1 hit. I'm going to spend a command point to re-roll that. All right, so it's going to be 2 hits. Strength 4, so looking for 3s to wound. Getting 1 wound. AP minus 2 is going to go straight through his armor. So that's 1 damage.
Yep.
So that's going to be enough. Roll for his injury roll. And on a 6, he's out. And now we've got his other 2 attacks into my Genestealer over there, Pure Strain. So that's going to be 1 hit. Strength 4, so looking for a 4 to wound. That is a wound. 5-up invul save. No, goes through. So injury roll. No, flesh wound. All right, so now my Pure Strain over here is going to attack into him. He's got a flesh wound, so he's going to have 3 attacks hitting on 4s. That is going to be 2 hits. Pauper Princes also doesn't account for Pure Strains. They don't get the benefit of it. So it's going to be 2 hits, wounding on 4s. That is going to be 1 wound, AP minus 1, so 1 5-up save. No, takes a wound. And then my other dude bro is going to attack in, hitting on 3s. That is going to be 2 hits, looking for 4s to wound. That is going to be 1 wound again, AP minus 1 for 5-up save. And he's good. And now my dude bro over here, my combat specialist, is going to attack into his Death Leaper there. So he's going to have 3 attacks because he's the combat specialist, hitting on 3s. All right, so that's going to be 3 hits. Wounding on 2s because he's got the Rock Saw. That's going to be 2 wounds. AP minus 4, so that's just going to go straight through. So that's going to be 4 damage. So that's going to take him down to 0 there. So we'll do his injury roll here. So it's 1 second. All right, so my opponent spent 1 CP for 9 lives, which is one of the legendary hunter specialists tactics he can use. Essentially what happens is now that I'm rolling his injury rolls, I have to minus 1 from each of these die rolls. So basically if I roll a 4, it's actually a 3 kind of thing. So let's see what happens here. Damage 2 on that weapon. Oh, but the 5 and the 6, he is out of action. All right, so that's the end of the turn here. We do have over here in the morale phase, I do have to take a nerve test because I've lost 3 guys. So 3 plus 1 is 4. He is good to go. So that is going to be it for that. We'll figure out points because I think you do have some secondaries, right? Mm-hmm. All right, so my opponent does have some secondaries. We'll figure that out. All right, so at the end of the turn, I hold 3 objectives. My opponent holds 1 objective, so my opponent scores 1 point for the primary. I score an additional 3 points for the primary, putting me at 6 points for that. I did get the 7 point for the special secondary objective there from this guy doing nothing, just holding that objective. And then my opponent scored a point for cut apart because he removed a model from the in the fight phase, and then he got death from afar because he removed a model in the shooting phase. So he scored both of those points there. So it puts him at a total of 4 points, puts me at a total of 7 points. So now we will roll to see who has initiative going into turn 3. Opponent rolled a 5. I rolled a 7 or 8. So we will come back to you after movement phase for the Genestealer Cult. All right, movement phase here. These 2 guys stayed in combat. He moved over here towards the wall and then stayed within 2 inches of the objective. I nominated again for the secondary objective. So he is then moved over here to the wall. This guy moved over to there. He advanced up over here, and now we're going to have some charges. So we're going to start off with him charging into this guy over here. So he's going to fire Overwatch because he doesn't need line of sight for his shooting. So here we go, looking for 6s.
He didn't move, so reroll 1s.
Nope, getting 1 hit there. Wounding on a 2. That is a wound. It's going to go straight through. D3 damage. 1 to a minimum of 1, so he just takes 1 wound. His charge distance. 7 inches. I don't think that's going to make it. 1 second. All right, he did not make it there. So now this guy over here is going to charge into this guy over here. So we have, so 6-inch charge. Or, sorry, looking for 6s. Overwatch. Nope, no hits there. So his charge distance, 10 inches will get him in. All right, movement phase for the Tyranids. He had to stay in combat here. This guy readied himself. He got elected for the secondary so that he just started the movement phase there. Is not going to do anything, so he can get the extra point for the secondary. And then he is going to stay in combat over there. So that's it for the movement phase. We'll come back to you with the shooting phase. All right, so we're going to start with the readied guy here. He is going to fire in the shooting phase into my guy over here. So he didn't move, so he gets to re-roll that 1.
Yes.
Hitting on 6s though. So that's going to be 1 hit. Wounding on a 2. That is a wound. D3 damage, because it's AP minus 2. 1 damage, so that's going to take him out, or take him down to 0, so injury roll. On a 6, he's out of action. All right, he's going to shoot his flesh hooks into this dude bro over here, so it's assault 2. So he's going to be hitting on 4s. That is 2 hits. These are going to be wounding on strength 4, so 4s to wound. That is 1 wound. 5 up, save. No, almost, but no, not enough. So injury roll +1 because he's got a flesh wound already. No, flesh wound. Oh, going to spend a command point to re-roll that. So here we go.
Come on, good night.
And a 6, he's out. All right, so into the fight phase. My guy who charged will go first. So he's going to have 3 attacks here. Hitting on 3s. All right, that's going to be all hits. Wounding on 2s. That is going to be 3 wounds. AP minus a bunch. Does he have any invul saves?
On him?
Yeah.
He only says on a 4.
On a 4. Oh, 1 second. He's actually toughness 5, so but those 4s and 2 6s are enough to wound him with a strength 10. All right, so that's going to put him down to 0 wounds. He does not have an invul save, so these are going to be 2 damage on the injury, or 2 rolls on the injury roll here. A 3 and a 3, so that's going to be flesh wounds. I'm going to spend a command point to re-roll that. And that 4 will be enough to get him out. All right, then to the regular fight phase, we got my guy here, 3 attacks, hitting on 3s. Don't get to re-roll that because don't. And on a 5, that is a wound, AP minus 1, so he's got a 5 up save. Oh, on a 3, he takes a wound. And now his guy over here is going to get to fight back. 4 attacks here, hitting on 3s.
I'm not flesh wounded.
All right, so that's going to be 1 hit. Was going to spend a command point to reroll 1 of those. That's going to be 2 hits. These are going to be strength 4, so 4s to wound. Getting 1 wound, AP minus 2, so it's a 5 up invul save. Yeah, with the 5, woo! All right, so that is going to be it for the turn there. At the end of the turn, I control 2 objectives. My opponent controls 1 objective, so he'll score 1 point for that. I will score 3 points for having 2 or more and more than my opponent. And then, so that's going to be 9 points to me for the, so I've maxed out my primary, can't score any more from primary. but I do score. I scored the additional one for this one. I also scored engage on all fronts, which is have a model in each of the 4 quadrants. And I also scored scout the field, which is have models within 1 inch of 3 different table edges. So scoring me 3 additional points on secondaries there. So that's going to put me at, 9, 10, 13 points total right now, which is pretty good. My opponent again scored 1 point for primary there. He also killed something in the fight phase, or no, in the shooting phase. He took away 2 models, so he gets 2 points for that. So maxing out the total for his death from afar. And he also got the additional point over here for activate engines for that one. So so that is going to be it for the turn here. So now we will roll to see who has initiative going into the final turn, turn 4. My opponent rolls an 8. I rolled a 6. So we'll come back to you after movement phase for the Tyranids. All right, movement phase for the Tyranids here. He stayed in combat over here, and these 2 guys readied themselves. So that's going to be it for the movement phase. So we'll come back to you with the Genestealer Cult movement phase. All right, movement phase. These 2, he got elected for the engage or activate engines. So that's going to be the last point for that objective, maxing that out. He is going to ready himself. He stayed back here. He moved up here onto the objective. And he stayed in combat. So now we're going to move into assaults. He is going to try to assault into him over here. 8 inches will get him in.
Damn.
And then this guy's going to charge into him over here. So Overwatch. Getting 1 hit, and it's the beginning of the turn, so he gets to reroll that 1. No. So it's going to be 1 hit, wounding on a 2. That is a wound. That's going to go straight through, so it's D3 damage. 2 damage, so 2 injury rolls here. And he's out of action. All right, so into the shooting phase. He is going to be readied. He's going to fire into him over there. So it's going to be 4 shots because he's on long wave. He's further than 12 inches away. So he's more than twice, more than half range, and he's also got obscured there. So I'm going to be hitting on 6s. Getting 1 hit. Strength 3, toughness 5, so looking for a 5 to wound. That is a wound. AP nothing, so he's got his regular save. So 1 4-up save. No, so he takes a wound. All right, so now his guy over here is going to fire into my dude bro over here. So it's going to be 2 shots here. Hitting on, he is obscured from where he's at. Oh, no, he's not obscured because he's out in the open there. So it's going to be 2 shots hitting on 3s. That's 2 hits. Wounding on 2s. That's 1 wound. I was going to spend a command point to reroll that. So that's 2 wounds, D3 damage. Let's do the first one. 2 becomes 1 damage, so he's down to 1. And then 1, so he's down to 0. So let's see if he's out here. On that 4, he's out. And now his dude bro here is going to fire into my leader. So he's going to have 2 shots here hitting on 6s. That's going to be no hits. All right, into the fight phase. My one guy that charged here is going to attack. He's got 2 attacks hitting on 3s. That is 1 hit, but getting to reroll because of Pauper Princes on a turn that he charged. Nope, not meant to be. So wounding on a 4. That is a wound, AP -1. So he's got a 5-up save. No, goes through, so he's down to 0. Let's see if he's out of action. No, takes a flesh wound. I'm actually going to spend a CP to reroll it. Yeah, he's out of action with a 5. All right, so that's going to be at the end of the turn here of the morale phase. I've got 7 guys out of action, which means that I have to roll to see if I am broken. Leadership 9 on this guy here. So we're good with a 6. My opponent has to roll to see if he's broken. 7 because he lost 3 guys. And on a 7, he's good to go as well. And no one has any flesh wounds on the table, so there's no nerve tests that need to be taken. But at the end of the turn here, my opponent controls 1 objective. I control 1 objective, which means that we each get, or he gets 1 point, because I already maxed out on the primary there. I did score another point for Scout the Field, because I have got 1, 2, 3 table edges that I'm near. And my opponent didn't get any secondaries from that turn at all. So that is the end of the game there on turn 4 with a resounding Genestealer Cult victory. A total of 9 primary points plus 3 points for this. So that's going to be 12 points plus 2 points for that. So 9, 12, 14, 15 points for the Genestealer Cult. My opponent scored 4 points for primary. Then he managed to max out Death from Afar, so giving him 7 points. He got Cut Apart for 1 turn, so he got 8 points for that, and then he also got 1 point for the other one with 9 points. So a 15-9 victory for the Genestealer Cult. So I guess they did manage to fight off this Hive Fleet to protect this planet for their own Hive Fleet. So we'll see how that continues, I'm sure, in the future. So I had a ton of fun. This was a really fun game. I really like Arena. It's really fast-paced, quick game that just bangs out in 4 turns there. And this was kind of interesting. This is the first time that we tried it out here with commanders and using some of the commanders from elites, which is cool, like the Death Leaper. And it played out fine. You know, it played out completely fine, which is a ton of fun. So I know that there's, you know, a lot of the games, they have specific points, and everyone's talking about what the maximum points are that you can play in a mission. But if you're playing with your friends, who cares? You know what I mean? That's what we threw down here. Was we decided, you know what? I want to try to play another arena game because we hadn't played arena in a while, and we were like, but we'd also like to try it with some commanders and maybe some of the stuff from elites. So we decided to throw those in and just have a good time. So that's the whole point of these kill team games and any of these games, is that if you're just having fun with your friends, why not do it? You know what I mean? Obviously, neither of these lists can we take to an actual arena kill team event, but who cares? We had a ton of fun. So it just goes to show you that the missions still play out just as well, even when you throw in those extra rules for commanders, and it just gives you more options, which is a ton of fun. So I hope you guys have all enjoyed this. I certainly have. I have been Phil the Glacial Geek as always. My opponent's been Neil, and until next time, have fun.